Are we living in the Matrix? Are we living in a simulation? This is a theory that has gotten very popular over the years. A lot of people questioning if the reality we're living in is actual reality, or are we just part of somebody else's reality and ours is just a simulation or a video game similar to The Sims. Now, I'm not here to convince you one way or the other, but what we are going to do today is go over some stories, some cases from real life that makes you think a little bit like, that's a little bit too weird. What are the chances of these things happening? And then maybe by the end of this episode, you'll be questioning, is this the Matrix? Are we living in a simulation? So let's jump right into it. The first case or story I want to talk about is the case of the two Brady Fagels. This was a really trendy topic a while back, and it kept popping up. But there are two baseball players whose photos I'm going to put up here. Both of them are named Brady Fagel. As you can see, both of them look exactly alike. Not only that, they are both professional baseball players. They both play the same exact position, which is pitcher. They are the same height. They are the same weight. They both wear glasses. These two men are not related. They never even knew each other. The only reason they found out about each other, one of the Brady Fagels had to go in to see Dr. James Andrew for a shoulder surgery on his right shoulder. After it got done, he had rehab. He was good to go. 6 months later, the other Brady Fagel suffered the same exact injury and also went to go see Dr. James Andrews. When doctor got the request for the treatment, he was confused because he thought he just did this operation on Brady Fagel. And he was like, nope, this is my first time having this injury. So he's like, okay. So he comes in and he sees him. He looks exactly like the other guy. So they find out like this is a different Brady Fagel, but he had the same exact injury, went to the same exact doctor, and got the same exact procedure. So it'd be one thing if you found somebody who looked like you guys had the same face. Okay, we all found somebody who looks like us. But to have somebody look exactly like you, be your exact almost dimensions, height, and weight, have the same career as you, which he's a pitcher in baseball. There's what 350 million people in the states. There's probably a couple thousand people who have that job, and two of them have the same exact name and look exactly alike. This case may seem like simple, no big deal, but this one is a real head scratcher for me. And it's like to see if his name was John Smith, but their names are Brady Fagel. Like, how common of a name is that? Bet you if you looked it up, out of all the people in the States with that name, I'm going to venture to guess there's less than 100 people with that first and last name. So this case to me is just kind of makes you take a step back and be like, that is really weird. Like, did the Matrix accidentally produce two of the same program, person, character, whatever you want to call it? Okay, that's the first case. Maybe silly, you guys could brush it off, but I'm just trying to build up to see how weird some of this stuff gets. The next case story I want to talk about is the case of the two William West. So a little backstory. So in the States, we started using the fingerprinting system to identify criminals. The reason we went to this system is because of this case I'm about to tell you about. Back in the early 1900s, this guy was checking into a prison in Kansas. I believe it was Leavenworth Prison. He's talking to the guard. The guard's looking at him and going to check him in. The guard was confused. He said, "Aren't you already in this prison? Haven't we done this?" And Will West was like, "No, sir. I've never been in prison. This is my first time." So the guard was confused. He's like, "Okay." So checks him in, takes his photos, blah, 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 sends him in. But the guard went into the files and then he found it. William West. He's like, "I knew I already checked this guy in." So it was a totally different person. It was another guy named Will West, and they both looked exactly the same. You can see the photos. So, because of this case, that's when the state started saying we need a different way to identify criminals because these guys have the same exact name and the same exact face. So, if that happens in the future, how are we going to be able to differentiate between people who come in and out of the prison system? Thus, the fingerprinting system was born, and it was thanks to the case of the two William West. Again, all the people that are born every day, what are the chances you're going to look like somebody and have the same exact name as them and also commit a crime and also be checked into the same exact prison? So just like the case with the Brady Fagels playing the same position, the same sport, these two guys being also criminals who look exactly alike, have the same name, go to the same prison. Just very, very strange cases and start to make you think, I don't know, that's a little weird. Again, is this proof that we are in the Matrix, that we're living in a simulation? I don't know, but these are fun stories and questions and things to ponder. So we'll get into our next story. We'll get into something a little bit more, something different. So everybody knows what happened with Charlie Kirk recently, right? Charlie Kirk was a polarizing political figure. He was assassinated while attending a big public gathering. He was shot in his neck by an assassin. The strange thing about that case, if you haven't heard the coincidence, back in 1998, a movie by the name of Snake Eyes came out with Nicolas Cage. In this movie, there was a character, it was a political figure, kind of polarizing. His name was Charlie Kirkland, very similar to Charlie Kirk. In the movie, this character attends a large public gathering. I believe it was a boxing match, where he is assassinated by receiving a shot in his neck. Pretty much the same exact spot as Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, in real life, his assassin so far has been named as a person named Tyler. In the movie, the character of Charlie Kirkland, when he was assassinated, he was there to watch a boxing match. In the boxing match, one of the characters in the match's name was Tyler. So this is starting to get a little weird. You're like, okay. Also, outside in that movie, there was a hurricane coming, and the name of the hurricane in the movie was called Hurricane Jezebel. Charlie Kirk, in real life, had a group of women. I believe they were a coven of witches who were against him, and he had issues with them, and they were doing curses and things like this on him. And their name was the Jezebels. In real life, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on September 10th. In the movie, Charlie Kirkland was also assassinated on September 10th in the movie. So, again, this is so strange. How do all of these things start stacking up? It really makes you question, like, maybe it was one thing, they both had a similar name and they were both assassinated, but it was on the same date. Their names were that similar. The assassin and one of the people in the movie had the same names. The name of the hurricane, I don't know. It's just strange, right? Can we acknowledge that all those things, all those similarities from a fictional event to a real life event matching up that well is a little strange? Again, does this prove that we are living in the Matrix? Does this prove that we are living in a simulation? No. But we can all acknowledge it's really weird. Get into another example. There's a couple ways I can go with this one. Let's do the story of the Titanic. For those of you who don't know, you might have heard this big coincidence already. 12 years before the tragedy of the Titanic happened, a book came out by a man named Morgan Robertson in 1898. The book was called Futility, the Wreck of the Titan. It was all about this huge ship that was deemed unsinkable um, and it eventually crashed into an iceberg, sinking, killing almost everybody on board, just like the Titanic. Now let's start with the similarities. The ship in the book was called the Titan. The ship in real life was called the Titanic, off by two letters. Both were described as the largest ships of their time. They were both deemed unsinkable with watertight compartments. They were both similar in length. The Titan in the book was 800 feet in length. The Titanic was 882 feet in length. And each of them had a 3-screw propeller. Both were capable of high speeds, traveling at around 25 knots. Both ships carried only the legal minimum number of lifeboats, deemed insufficient for all passengers, a fatal flaw for both the fictional Titanic, the fictional Titan, and the real life Titanic. Both of the ships were British owned. In the book, the ship was owned by a British company. The Titanic in real life was owned by a British company. Both ships sank after striking an iceberg in April in the North Atlantic. You understand how crazy this is? So this guy writes this book about this boat called the Titan and how it sinks, how it's just like the Titanic tragedy that happened 12 years later. Both ships were almost the same length. They almost had the same exact name. They both sank in April. Like, that's oddly specific. They both sank because they hit an iceberg on the starboard bow. So in the book, the ship hits the iceberg on the starboard bow. In real life, the Titanic hits the iceberg on the starboard bow and sinks. Both struck their icebergs around midnight, and both sank approximately 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland. Again, if you're writing a book, that ship could sink anywhere. You know how huge the ocean is? It could have sank anywhere, down by Antarctica, up by the North Pole, off the coast of whatever, but they both sank around 400 nautical miles off the coast of Newfoundland. Like, this is too bizarre. This is too weird. In both scenarios, survivors were rescued by a ship bound for the Mediterranean. So, in the Charlie Kirk case, you had all those similarities from a movie. Here, this was in the late 1800s, so you had the similarities from a book that kind of came true and happened in real life. So that it just blows my mind. The chances of all these things happening like this story from a book, and then this real life event happens that mirrors that event almost exactly to the month that it sank, to how it sank, to the location that it sank in. Again, is this proof that we're living in a matrix? Is this proof of simulation? I don't know. But I think we can all agree very strange, really weird. All right. We'll get into one last story that kind of defends or shows some fuckery or weirdness involved with our timeline, with our history. Um, this one is the story of President Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. How these two men's presidencies and lives and details of their lives were almost exact carbon copies of each other. This list is pretty lengthy, so I'm going to actually read from this um, so I can hit all of these details. Now, this is not just one thing, two things, five things, 10 things. This is more. This goes to the the similarities between the two men, between their families, between their vice presidents, between their assassins. So I'm just going to read this list so you guys tell me what the chances of this are. Lincoln was elected president in 1860. Kennedy was elected president in 1960, exactly 100 years later. There are 7 letters in each of their names, 7 letters in Lincoln, 7 letters in Kennedy. Both of the presidents were shot in the head on a Friday before a major holiday. Both of them were seated beside their wives, neither of whom were injured. Both were in the presence of another couple, and in each case, the man was also wounded by the assassin. Both men, Kennedy and Lincoln, were over 6 feet tall. Both men studied law. Both seemed to have lazy eye muscles, which would sometimes cause one to deviate. Both suffered from genetic diseases. It is suspected that Lincoln had Marfan's disease and Kennedy suffered from Addison's disease. Both of these men served in the military. Lincoln was a scout captain in the Black Hawk War, and Kennedy served as a Navy lieutenant in World War II. Both were boat captains. Lincoln was a skipper for the Talisman, a Mississippi River boat, and Kennedy was skipper of the PT 109. Both had no fear of their morality, and they both had a disdain for bodyguards. Both often stated how easy it would be to shoot the president. Lincoln supposedly said, "If somebody wants to take my life, there is nothing I can do to prevent it." Kennedy supposedly said, "If somebody wants to shoot me from a window with a rifle, nobody can stop it." Now take note that both of these quotes are each exactly 16 words long. Okay. Lincoln sat in box 7 at the Ford's Theater during his assassination. Kennedy rode in car number 7 in the Dallas motorcade. Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater. Kennedy was shot in a Ford product, a Lincoln limousine. Mrs. Kennedy insisted that her husband's funeral mirror Lincoln's as closely as possible. That's just a strange little fact. Both of these presidents were directly concerned with civil rights, and both had the legality of their elections contested. President Kennedy's secretary's name was Lincoln, who warned him not to go to Dallas. Lincoln's secretary's name was Kennedy, who warned him not to go to the theater that night. Both of their successors' names were Johnson, Andrew Johnson, and Lyndon Johnson. Each name contains 13 letters. Both of these men had 2 daughters. Both of these men served in the U.S. Senate, and both were Southern Democrats. Andrew Johnson, born in 1808, and Lyndon Johnson was born in 1908. Again, this is not just Lincoln and Kennedy. This is the similarities between them, their vice presidents, their assassins, all of these things that lined up. It's as if history exactly repeated itself. Okay. Booth and Oswald, the assassins for both of these men, were both Southerners favoring unpopular ideas. Oswald shot Kennedy from a warehouse and hid in a theater, and Booth shot Lincoln in a theater and hid in a warehouse. Booth and Oswald were both murdered before a trial could be arranged. Both assassins were in their turn assassinated by shooters who used a Colt revolver and fired only one fatal shot. Booth and Oswald were born 100 years apart, and each name, Lee Harvey Oswald and John Wilkes Booth, has 15 letters. Is any of this strange to you guys? Is this starting to make you think, question something? I'm not done. This keeps going. Both assassins used 3 names: John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald. It should be noted that Lee Harvey Oswald was known as just Lee Oswald prior to the assassination. Both assassins struck when in their mid-20s. Booth was born in 1838 and Oswald was born in 1939. Each assassin lacked a strong father figure in his life. Booth's father died when he was 13 years old, and Oswald's father died before he was born. Excuse me. Each assassin had two brothers whose careers they coveted. Booth's two brothers were more successful actors, and Oswald envied his brothers' military lives. Both assassins were privates in the military. Booth was a private in the Virginia militia, and Oswald was a private in the Marine Corps. Both assassins were born in the South. Both assassins were known sympathizers to enemies of the U.S. Booth supported the Confederacy, and Oswald was a Marxist. Okay, this goes on and on. I'm going to pick just a couple more things. Both presidents were named after their grandfathers. Both were born second children. Both married while in their 30s. Lincoln married at 33, Kennedy married at 36. Both married dark haired 24-year-old women. Both wives died around the age of 64. Mary Todd Lincoln died in 1882 at the age of 63. Jackie Kennedy died in 1994 at the age of 64. Both wives were known for their high fashion and clothes. Both wives renovated the White House after many years of neglect. Each couple had 4 children, 2 of whom died before becoming a teen. Each couple lost a son while in the White House. Willie Lincoln died at age 12 in 1862, and Kennedy's son Patrick died 2 days after his birth in 1963. Okay, there's more. I could go on. I think we all get the point. So I know a lot of people are aware of the similarities between Lincoln and Kennedy. I don't know if you understand the extent and the similarities of their presidencies, of their lives, and then how it went down to their vice presidents, down to their assassins, and the similarities in all of their lives as well. Now you pair this with the other stories we've covered, and they are just very strange anomalies, if you want to call them that. If you're looking for a way to prove that we're living in some kind of weird matrix, that we are living in some kind of simulation, I think all of these stories are great little nuggets that can maybe support that argument. But again, I'm not here to prove that theory one way or the other. I just wanted to put these stories out there and get your minds thinking and see what you guys make of all of these random and crazy things. Uh, that'll do it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it tickled your brains and made you think just a little bit. And maybe when this episode's over, your brain will keep thinking, what the hell is going on? How can these similarities, these cases of history repeating, what does it mean? Maybe it doesn't mean anything, but I don't know. It really makes me think, and I hope it does the same for you. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Mr. Synchronicity out. I'll see you guys next time.